Imagine living in a world with no bedrooms, no locked doors, no private apartments. Your entire family might sleep inside the same shelter, while other members of your group sleep only a few steps away. So when ancient humans wanted intimacy, where did they actually go? And what did relationships look like before humans had houses, bedrooms, and the idea of personal space? To understand that, we have to go back to a time when almost everything about human life was communal. For most of human history, people lived in small groups. A few dozen people might travel, hunt, gather food, raise children, and sleep within the same camp. There was no separate room for parents, no guest room, no door you could close and say, "Don't come in." But that doesn't mean ancient humans had no privacy. It means privacy worked differently. At night, the world became a completely different place. The sun disappeared, temperatures dropped, the landscape became difficult to see. The campfire became the center of the group. People gathered around it. They talked. They shared food. They looked after children. And eventually, some people went to sleep. But not everyone necessarily slept in exactly the same place. Archaeological sites suggest that prehistoric living spaces could have different areas for different activities. There could be a place for sleeping, a place for the fire, a place for preparing food, and a place for making tools. The group lived together, but that didn't mean everyone had to be together every moment. And this is where nighttime became important. Darkness created something humans didn't have during the day: distance. A few steps away from the fire, the darkness became much deeper. There were no streetlights, no windows glowing across the landscape, and nobody could simply see everything happening around the camp. If two people wanted some time alone, they didn't necessarily need a bedroom. They could walk a short distance away, behind a large rock, into tall grass, between trees, or toward a secluded part of the landscape. The darkness itself could become a kind of privacy. But here's where things get complicated. Did ancient humans even think about relationships the same way we do? Probably not. Modern ideas like dating, marriage, boyfriends, girlfriends, and private bedrooms are relatively recent cultural systems. Human intimacy is much, much older. Long before written marriage contracts, long before wedding ceremonies, long before houses had separate bedrooms, humans were already forming relationships and raising children. But archaeologists can't simply look at a 50,000-year-old campsite and tell us who slept with whom. There is no ancient diary describing what happened behind a rock at night. So scientists have to work indirectly. They study human remains, genetics, living arrangements, ancient art, burial patterns, and comparisons with other primates and small-scale human societies. And what they find is fascinating. Humans appear to have evolved unusually strong social bonds. And there's a major reason for that. Human children take years to become independent. They can't walk immediately. They can't feed themselves. And they certainly can't survive alone. So raising a child required enormous investment. Food had to be collected. Protection had to be provided. And someone had to stay around long enough to help. This may have encouraged long-term cooperation between partners. But that doesn't mean every ancient relationship looked like a modern marriage. Human relationships have probably always been complicated. Different societies could have had different rules about partners, jealousy, sex, marriage, and family. There was never one universal prehistoric relationship system. And then there's another important part of the story: pregnancy. For most of human history, having a child wasn't simply a personal event. A new child could affect the survival of an entire group. A pregnant woman needed food, protection, and support. And after birth, the child needed years of care. Humans therefore developed something unusual. We didn't just raise children as individuals. Parents helped, grandparents helped, siblings helped, and other members of the community could help too. So intimacy wasn't only about reproduction. Relationships also helped create the social bonds that held the group together. And nighttime probably played another important role. Once the day's hunting and gathering were finished, the fire became the center of social life. People talked, they laughed, they told stories, they touched, they spent time together. And eventually some people went to sleep, others stayed awake, and some may have left the main group for a while. We can't know exactly what happened in those moments. There is simply not enough evidence. But we don't need to imagine prehistoric humans as completely different creatures. They experienced attraction. They formed attachments. They experienced jealousy. They had children. They wanted companionship. Those emotions are far older than bedrooms. And that's the strange part. The modern bedroom feels like an essential part of intimacy. But for almost all of human history, it didn't exist. Humans managed without it. Privacy wasn't created by four walls. It could come from darkness, distance, the landscape, and simply having a group that understood when to leave someone alone. So the next time you close your bedroom door, remember how recent that luxury actually is. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans formed relationships, raised children, found intimacy, and lived together without a single locked door. The bedroom isn't what made human intimacy possible. Humans were doing that long before bedrooms ever existed.